Assalamu alaikum. You know, it's amazing to me that we have such a strong push for reparations, and that more of our people are not pushing. That's amazing to me. I don't get it. I don't understand it. You know, unlike, people, especially white folks who are against reparations, they like to say, oh, slavery was so long ago. Slavery officially ended in 1942. My mother was born in 1943. People say, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Slavery ended with the Emancipation Proclamation. Well, all the slaves in America weren't freed with the Emancipation Proclamation. It only applied to slaves that were in the Confederate States who were in rebellion against the Union. And we all know that it didn't free all of them, because all the way out in Texas, they didn't get the word that they was free until after the Civil War. Okay? At the end of the war, when the Union troops made their way into Texas, is when the black folks in Texas learned that they was free. Okay? But slavery continued in the U.S. after Reconstruction. After Johnson killed Reconstruction, these Confederates down here went right back to doing what they was doing before. They just couldn't do it as openly and brazenly as they had before. But slavery continued. They would lock a black man up for trespassing and then make him work for free. They would lock a black man up for talking too loudly in the presence of a white woman and make him work. And this happened to both black men and women. Okay? All the former Confederate states passed laws like this where, they would lock a black man up for carrying a concealed weapon, a knife, a razor blade, and make him work for free. This went on all the way until 1940. Actually, it went on past 1942. But in 1942, there was a case out in Beesville, Texas, where this white family had enslaved this black man and had beat him to the point where he was permanently disfigured and disabled. And President FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, had instructed his DOJ to actively and aggressively pursue these cases. And that's the only reason those white folks got prison time for enslaving that black man out in Beesville, Texas. They actually served some prison time for that. I don't know how much. I don't know the details of that aspect of it. But this was in Beesville, Texas, and there was a write-up about it in the Corpus Christi Times. That was in 1942. But this had been going on since the end of Reconstruction, where they would take black people for things that would not be considered crimes today, or things that weren't even considered crimes for white folks at that time, but because you was black, they would give you prison time and charge you a fine, and then allow someone else to use that to put you to work. Okay, and this went on for hundreds of thousands of black people well after the Civil War was over, well after the Emancipation Proclamation. This went on well up into the 50s. The last case that I know about personally was in, I believe it was 1950 or 52, where there was a similar situation. They were prosecuted for peonage. Those white folks were prosecuted for peonage. But the prior case that I've been talking about in 1942, the DOJ, Department of Justice, charges against those white folks specifically said slavery. That's what it said. And the only reason Franklin Delano Roosevelt sent his DOJ after these people, and there was a lot of people doing it, a lot of white folks doing it, not just white folks, individuals, but companies, corporations, businesses, they were doing it. They were enslaving black people for trespassing, speaking too loudly in the presence of a white woman, any number of minor so-called petty crimes. And so the last case in 1942 in Beesville, Texas, was prosecuted by Franklin Delano Roosevelt's DOJ because Franklin Delano Roosevelt did not want the Japanese and the Germans to be able to use American slavery against the U.S. in the propaganda war. Okay, like the propaganda war that's going on right now between the U.S. and Russia is a propaganda war, where the U.S., because they're aiding the Ukrainians against Russia, they're using all of their media to vilify Putin and Russia. Okay, if Russia was smart, they would use America's treatment of black Americans against them. You see? So in World War II, Roosevelt didn't want the Japanese and the Germans to be able to use the fact that America still had slavery for thousands and thousands of black folks. So he sent his DOJ after the people that were doing it. That's why that particular case that I spoke about was brought to light, and those people were prosecuted because he did not want America's enemies to be able to use that against America. So when people like Mitch McConnell says, oh, nobody from that time is alive today, and that was so long ago, it wasn't that long ago. My mother was born in 1943. The last slave in America was freed in 1942. 1 year difference between the freeing of that slave and my mother's birth. The last Confederate soldier died in 1959. The last Confederate soldier died in 1959. It wasn't that long ago, black people, and you are owed by your government. You are owed by your country. America used to bring in millions of white immigrants and give them land. Okay? And when your people were freed from working for free, they gave them nothing. Matter of fact, put laws in place to lock them up so that they could put them back to work for nothing. Push for what's owed to you and your children and your grandchildren. By 2053, we're projected to be a wealthless group. Wealthless. That's not to mean that we ain't gonna have Jay-Z and Beyonce, but what that means is that as a group, when you average it out, we're gonna be at zero wealth. Better wake up. All of you Negroes with these degrees, you think you're gonna be good? The average black college graduate has less wealth than the average white high school graduate. The average white high school graduate has twice the wealth of the average black college graduate. So all you college graduates out there, you black college graduates, you better get behind this push and push for reparations for your children and your grandchildren. You understand me? They're going to need this in America. America is not built for you to have the American dream just off of labor. It's not built like that anymore. Those days are gone. Ronald Reagan ended that, and it's only gotten worse since his presidency. So black folks, you better wake up. Assalamu alaikum.